Yo, what's up everyone? It's been a very long time since I've done a car update, but here we go. I'm just going to give a little bit of a summary of this project, where I'm at with it, what I've done with it, because there'll probably be some newcomers to the channel or people that may want to click on one of my videos and not really understand what's going on, where I'm at, and what the plan is with the car. So basically this is my 1988 K10 Mark 1 Micra. This was my granddad's a long time ago, and it also was driven around by one of my aunties, and then I drove it for a couple of years. I did a CG13 16 valve conversion on it. There was time when it had twin Webers on it, and then there's time when it had SR20 throttle body, and it was a bit of a rat. It had a rotten bonnet, you know, rusty bonnet, and it was quite rough. The wings, it was extremely low. I'll insert a couple of pictures because a few people may remember it from the forums back in the day. Last year I spent almost an entire year making it four-wheel drive, which you can see if you go back to the video introduction to my K10 and my R32. You'll be able to see what I did, the four-wheel drive conversion. And it got to the point where I needed to spend money. I didn't have money, I got bored, I wanted a drift car. I'd broken down my MX-5 drift car, and I've kept back all the bits, like the engine, the gearbox, subframes, prop, suspension, a lot of the bits that you'd need to do a rear-wheel drive conversion. That's the seat that I've ran in all of my drift cars since around 2008 or 2009, not 100% sure. That came from my mate Martin Lee, not my brother. He's just got the same surname, and yeah, I've used it in every car. So I started to make it rear-wheel drive around Christmas time, January, and in June it was a rolling car, and I put it out for a show, which you can see if you go back a couple of videos. I will link that in the description, and I'll put a quick clip in where I'm walking around the car. The last videos I was doing, I was developing some new suspension for the car, which is adjustable lower arms. I've got independent toe control, which MX-5s don't have, and independent camber control. Usually this is done on the eccentric bolts at the bottom. What I've done is I've welded these pockets so that I can have toe arms basically, and I've put spherical bearings on my drop spindles, and obviously welded a fork here. One last thing I need to do though to this setup is make new upper arms, because these Japspeed ones are extremely heavy, and also if these nuts were to come loose, look what happens here. Probably better if I show you here, seeing as all the arms are on this one. Oh, and I've jacked it up tight, so here we go. You can see the hub, the upright is moving forward and back. So yeah, all of this is painted, it's ready to go in. New bearings in the drop spindles, all new rose joints, new sphericals, spherical there. T45 arms. The diff is up on the garden. I'm just about to clean it and paint it. You can see it's there. Need to put it in a plastic container so I don't get oil everywhere. Hashtag save the earth. So yeah, that's like the rear end. It's at the moment I've got like a Torsen rear, like a Torsen diff. I've also got the option of welded diff, but I'm going to get a CAS limited slip, a plated diff for it. So yeah, here we go. This is the car. I've removed the entire front end, cut out the bulkhead. As you can see, the engine goes way back into the car basically. This engine is completely standard internally. I have got on the stand, which you can also see if you go back a few videos, I've got this block here that I stripped. I've got a crank down there, so it looks like it's going rusty, but it's alright, it's just covered in dust. I'm going to take all this stuff home and put it in my living room so it doesn't hashtag no girlfriend. Got a few bits of body, like chassis work to do, but first of all I need to like mount the shocks, get all the shocks mounted, and then I can panel that in. So the subframe could be fitted, but there's a few bits and bobs under here that I want to weld, which if you've been watching my videos I've already spoken about this. So if you go back a couple of videos, like all this seam here is welded on the inside of the car, but I want to weld it on the outside of the car. And you see this gap, there's a gap here between this tube. I need to push the panel down. It's slightly warped when I welded it probably. You can see it's kind of got a bow in it. Push that down, weld that to there. Little bit of tidying up to do up in here. I need to get rid of this, like grind these welds off, get rid of this panel. Sorry, not that bit. I've done it here, so I need to clean up these welds, and I'm just getting this bit here off. Need to cut these bits off flush and repanel them in. You can see I need to go through it with Cure Rust, and once that's done I can then paint it, Gravitex it. I'm gonna get a mat a minute so I can get underneath it. So you can see there's a tunnel. I need to grind all this and clean it up. I'll probably weld this inside edge and then grind it back so it looks nice. So you can see I made new chassis rails that then join into the car at the sills. They actually go right into the sills. It's all been plated in. As you can see, it's got whole new chassis rails and cross members and new floor pans. All of this is obviously new. As you can see here, I was moving it on the jack. I had the jack like under here or something, and it slipped and it's dented the hell out of that. So I'm gonna have to try and dress that back somehow, make it look tidy. I'm using trailer tubs that I bought off of eBay, and I've cut this edge up a little bit to give me a bit more tyre clearance so I can get the car lower. I've welded in tubes for sill stands, so it's just like the rally cars that I work on at work. So the transmission tunnel that I made, as you can see, transmission tunnel, the tubs from the inside and the boot floor from the inside. You might be able to tell that I've raised the subframe quite high up into the car. That's to, get the best I can out of the geometry. Believe it or not, a Micra is 35mm longer in wheelbase than an MX-5. Right, so to gain clearance for the tyres back here, I actually stretched the wheelbase by 2 inches. So in actual fact, the wheelbase on this is 92 inches, and on an MX-5 it's only 89 inches. So I've stretched the wheelbase, and because of that I've had to make a prop spacer. I did move the engine back a little bit, so this prop space is only, I think, 1 3/4 inches. So I've essentially moved the engine back about 1 inch or so. I can't remember the exact figures, but yeah, I've moved the engine back and the gearbox back relative to what it would be in the front subframe on an MX-5. This is a crap engineering tubular front subframe. I went and got it from Claire at Crap. I bought it without the engine mount, so I've welded these brackets on where I needed them, and I've spun up these aluminium solid mounts. It's a depowered steering rack, Jap speed upper arms, which are actually okay. They are heavy, but they'll do the job. I'm yet to make lower arms. I think these are AutoStar Kanjis, 8J by 14, competition only Advans on there. Now you can see that I've cut the whole front end off. This is going to be a tubular front. It's going to go from here, and it'll go, you know, from these points all the way around and then back over to the other side, and then that will support the wings, the bonnet pins, and it will hold like the radiator and that, although I have considered putting a radiator in the back, but I don't know if I want to. Then there'll be also structure coming from here forward, which will be removable and replaceable, and that will be to hold the front bumper. And once I put the cage in, I'm going to come through the bulkhead, through here, and then that will come and join onto these chassis legs that I made, and then I'll make some sort of arrangement for the shock mounts. Now, I have been talking to Matt Urch from Urchfab. Go and check his channel out, link in description. His build is absolutely amazing. It's a stunning car, and he really knows what he's doing with the fabrication and stuff. But we may work together on a few little projects. It's something we spoke about 3 months ago, 2 or 3 months ago. I haven't really spoken to him since, so I don't blame him if he doesn't want to. I kind of needed a break from the cars for a bit, so I went bicycling in the Alps on a mountain bike for the first time. So now down here we've got a TD05. This is a manifold that I made years ago. It's a Honda B series. I think it's excess power. It was off. I got it off eBay for 40 quid when I was at uni in like 2005. So it's got a TD05 on there. I've got a Gen V Turbo Plenum, which I got off of one of our rally cars at work. We had a backfire and it blew this whole piece off. So I don't know what I'm going to do here. I might just buy a new snorkel just to save me some effort. Cut up an MX5 manifold, welded a flange, this flange on, welded this flange on, and then I've got yellows, RX7 yellow injectors. I'm running Mega Squirt from MS Labs or Reverent. You can see here, these boxes, the subframe comes up into these boxes and the subframe bolts in there, which is non-standard to an MX5. It's just, I'd have to do it differently. And it also bolts in here. And yeah, that's probably about it. I've got drop spindles on the front as well. These are looking a bit worse for wear. They just need a clean up and paint. Yeah, I've got drop spindles, 1.8 discs and calipers, and you'll be surprised to see that it all fits under a 14-inch wheel. People say that they don't, but they do. What I'll do in a minute is I'll take the tunnel out and the dashboard, because the tunnel is actually removable, and we actually changed the gearbox and the clutch from inside the car. So the plan is to make this quick release, this binnacle. I'm going to have to make this like quick release so that you can get under it to check the fluid levels for the clutch and the brake. So these clocks I won't use. I'll have a plate affixed to the pedal box that will have probably rev counter and a couple of other clocks, temperature and whatnot, and then that will be like permanently attached to the car. So you just lift the dash out, the clocks stay behind, or you can lift the binnacle off, do the fluid levels. So the idea is the dash comes in and out without interfering with anything else whatsoever. And then you take the dash out, pull the gearbox, pull the tunnel out, and then you can get to the gearbox and everything. So what I'll do now, before I go any further, I'll just show you this. So the seat is literally as far back as it can go. Well, maybe another ½ inch if I trim the rails. I've also got to trim a little bit off the side of the seat here, so the seat can go over. I haven't put a hole through the bulkhead yet for the column to go through, but it's a standard length MX5 column, and the pedal position, the seat position and the column position feels exactly the same as it did in an MX5 relative to where the gear stick is. Right, so there's a transmission tunnel out. I made this myself. I made a performing tool with some 40mm tube, and I basically formed it on a bench. I've talked about that in earlier videos. Not sure which video, but I'm sure if you're interested in this, you can go back through some of the videos. You might even be able to tell from the thumbnail which one it is. But here's a transmission. This is a 6-speed from an NB8 RS, if I believe. I've got 2 of these transmissions. Coolant reroute, which basically makes the coolant come out the back of the block, back of the head, sorry. It basically forces the coolant around the entire engine instead of it just going in the front and back out the front and missing the back 2 cylinders. So that will run like down underneath the inlet to the radiator, or back if I decide to put the radiator in the back. As you can see, this isn't actually mounted properly. I've still got some mounts to put here, and I've got to mount the throttle pedal on there. This is just like some of the mount, probably put a gusset plate in here. The intention is to have a dash bar going across from front leg to front leg, and fix the pedal box to that as well. The cross member is literally just a bit of 80mm box section with, I think, 2mm wall, and then I made up a few bits that can bolt into it and use standard bolts. But you basically undo them 2 bolts, undo some of the bell housing, or all the bell housing bolts, and out it comes. I've got a little bit more to do back here. Got a plate in back there. Got to put plates in for the cage. The cage legs are going to be all the way back here, similar to my boss's drift car at work that I'm building, S15. I've got a fuel tank box down here, as you can see, and that box I've got to cut in and put it in here, sink it down as low as it will go. Then this is the filling point, which there's actually like a dip in the door that's already there from standard. So this like clears the door no problem. So you'll fill it into the tank. So as you will know if you watched the first videos, the full intention was to use this for the Retro Drift Championship, as there was literally nothing in the rules whatsoever regarding me doing this sort of conversion and then using it in the Retro Drift Championship. I inquired, I got some, I don't know, I got some odd answers like, oh, I don't know. And this is the owner of the championship. He said, oh, I don't know. Then later on he was like, oh, I don't know how I can sign it off as safe. And then now when you look at the regulations for 2019, they've said no front wheel drive conversion, converted to rear wheel drive, which is pretty convenient if you ask me. But hey, I'm thinking about doing drag racing, sprinting, hill climbing, gymkhana, and a whole host of other things instead. May even try and do some drift demonstrations instead. I think we're getting close to being all caught up on this. Obviously I've got to get a cage made, so maybe Urchfab can help me out with that. I would happily pay him. I've seen his work. Take the car up there. I've got all the material for the roll cage already. Get him to do that. He can make videos about that if he wants. And maybe I'll try and convince him to put a turbo on his 100E. Here's some more detail of the chassis rails and chassis legs and whatnot. This cutout was for the old 4-wheel drive prop when it was 4-wheel drive. There's a small amount more welding to do under here. but not much. In here, look, you can see this is my chassis jig that I made. It all, like, the subframes mount to that. It's like basically a chassis table that I built. If you go back through my channel, there'll be links in description. You'll be able to see when I built the jig. So peeps, that pretty much wraps it up. There's not much more to say. I'll see you guys soon. Hopefully it won't be too long until I post another video about this one. I really need to pull my finger out because it would be nice to get this finished up and then I can get on with the skyline. Anyway, I'll see you later. Cheers for now.